Up at Lee's Ferry, the night before the trip, JT sat on the side tube of his 18-foot neoprene raft, popped open a beer, and tried to remember exactly how many times he'd flipped his raft in Hermit. Deep in the inner gorge, 95 miles downstream, the runoff boulders from Hermit Creek collided with the Colorado River to create one of the longest hydraulic roller coasters in the canyon. Wave after wave of foaming madness that could buckle a raft in seconds. The fifth wave, in particular, had a tendency to curl back upon itself, something that could easily flip a boat. JT's goal was always to punch straight on through, aiming for just enough of a wild ride to give his passengers a thrill without actually flipping. Trouble was, sometimes the ride got ahead of itself, and JT hit that fifth wave with maybe too much weight in the back, and suddenly, there they were, rising up, hovering in midair with water roaring all around, and JT heaving his weight into the oars even as he felt them go back and over. Down into the churning froth, getting maytagged, and then popping up into the light, always disoriented until he spotted the white underside of his raft, which was usually right there beside him. And so it was, more than just a few times in his life as a guide. And although there were always a few who subsequently wanted off, now, what made it all worthwhile was seeing the expressions on the others' faces as he hauled them up onto the upturned belly of his raft. Expressions of shock, adrenaline, joy, fear, joy, excitement, and did he mention joy? Because that's what it was, usually. The sheer exultation of surviving a swim in one of the most powerful rivers on Earth. JT tallied up the times he'd flipped. 5 in all, if his memory served him well. Draining his beer, he tossed the empty can onto a tarp on the beach and reached into the mesh drag bag for another. The sun was still high in the sky, the water a deep turtle green, achy cold if you left your foot in for more than a few seconds. Across the river, tan hills sloped up from the water's edge, speckled with pinyon and sage and juniper. Downstream, salmon-pink cliffs marked the beginning of Marble Canyon. JT was the lead boatman for this trip, the official trip leader, and as such, was the one who made all the important day-to-day decisions. Where to stop for lunch, which hikes to take, whether they'd schedule a layover day. If there was a problem passenger, JT was responsible for reining him in. If someone got hurt, JT decided whether to evacuate. JT figured he was good for 2 trips per season as lead boatman. You got paid a little more, but you never really slept. Up on the beach, Dixie and Abo, his fellow guides, worked together stuffing tents one by one into a large rubberized bag. JT was tired and hungry and wished briefly that they were cooking him a good dinner instead. After a long morning spent loading up the truck back at the warehouse in Flagstaff, they'd driven the 3 hours to Lee's Ferry, where they worked the entire afternoon rigging their boats in the hot desert sun. The beach at Lee's Ferry was the only put-in point on the river, so it was crowded with people and boats. 2 fat motorized rafts, a dozen or so durable 18-footers, and a flotilla of colorful kayaks. The beach was littered with so much gear, dinged-up ammunition boxes, waterproof bags, paddles, oars, life jackets, water jugs, that it resembled a paddler's flea market. Yet, despite the mayhem, everybody seemed to know what was what and whose was whose, and JT knew that by 10 o'clock tomorrow, all this gear would be stowed in its rightful place on the boats. High in the sky, a turkey vulture slowly circled, its white-tipped wings spread wide. The people on the motor rig had set up lawn chairs and opened umbrellas for shade, but nobody was sitting down. There was too much work to be done, although they did it with a beer in hand. Up on the beach, Abo, his paddle captain, was now mending a book with duct tape, while Dixie, who would be rowing their 3rd boat, was starting to assemble their picnic dinner. She wore a yellow bathing suit top and a blue sarong, knotted low on her hips. Wet braids curled at her shoulders. "How come there are only 5 sandwiches?" she asked. 4 for me, 1 for you and JT to split, said Abo. Well, someone's going hungry, said Dixie. And it isn't going to be me. JT smiled to himself. He was glad to have these 2 for his crew. Abo, who could always be counted on to loosen up a group, was 35, tall and bony-legged, with bleachy-tipped brown hair and clear blue eyes. Nobody knew his real name. He was a farm boy from the Midwest who'd come out to study geology at the University of Arizona, then took a river trip and never went back to school. During the winter, he built houses and scavenged work up at the ski area. Reputedly, he had a son by a woman in California, a movie producer whom Abo had met on an earlier trip. He was a good guide in JT's view. Not only did he make people laugh, but as an amateur geologist, he knew the pastry layers of the canyon better than anyone.